Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Theory Pastas. Yes, Theory Pastas, the tales that typically denote a darker look, not often, not always, not all the time, but a darker look, usually, on a certain past favorite that we happen to love dearly. This time, we have one on the Rugrats, and all grown up, called simply the Rugrats Theory. So sit back and enjoy this Theory Pasta. The Rugrats really were a figment of Angelica's demonic and unimaginable imagination. Chucky died in 1986 along with his mother. That's why Chaz is a nervous wreck all the time. And see, Tommy was born in 1988, but he was a stillborn. That's why Stu is constantly in the basement making toys for the son he never had a chance to, live. The DeVilles had an abortion in 1990. Angelica couldn't figure out whether it would be a boy or a girl, thus creating the twins. As for the All Grown Up series of the cartoons, the teenage Angelica became addicted to various narcotics, which further aggravated her schizophrenia, bringing her back to her childhood and thus her creations she had obsessed over. Because of time lapse between the present and the last time she interacted with her creations, she made them older. Angelica was constantly taking hits of acid, so she would never have to live without her creations, who were her only company. In a judgmental world, Angelica's mom actually died of a heroin overdose in 1982, just after Angelica was born, and Drew, in his depression, married a gold-digging whore that Angelica idolized because she fooled herself into thinking it was her real mother, but always had a concept of her mom, Cynthia, and took a Barbie doll and made it after her mom's image, wearing an unwashed orange dress and having jacked-up hair, which is why she was so attached to it. Later in life, she followed in her mom's footsteps with drugs and everything, dying of overdose at age 13 when All Grown Ups was cancelled. The only Rugrat not to be fictional, however, was unborn Tommy's brother Dill. However, Angelica didn't know the difference between Dill and her creations. Although Dill didn't follow her commands, after endless crying and a refusal to disappear like the others did when Angelica was angry with them, she hit him. Due to this, he sustained a brain hemorrhage, which resulted in a deformation. And as he grew up, his damage only became more evident, and by the time he was 9 and all grown up, he lived as an outcast, being ridiculed for his weirdness and retardation. The immense guilt over this is what led Angelica to her drug use and is what led Angelica to uncreate the Rugrats briefly, until her experience with hallucinogenics. On her trip to Paris to find love, Chaz married a woman named Kira. He was actually going to marry a different woman named Coco, but she just wanted him for his money, who had a daughter named Kimi that was torn from her because she was a cocaine addict. Angelica imagined her from Kira's stories. He lost his mind after the death of his wife and was in denial that she was ever a prostitute. Upon returning to America, Chaz and Kira married and she got her green card. It was actually a really happy and romantic story. Kira continually struggled with addiction, but was relatively happy with her life in Chaz. Susie was actually Angelica's only friend, who entertained the thought of Angelica's creations for her sake. Angelica spent the last days of her life in the back of the school cafeteria, imagining friends around her and playing with the lives of her creations. Well, that was quite the theory, and it's also one of the more popular ones out there. Trust me, it's really popular, but let me step away from the hype and really chime in what I think about this. And I think it's more shock value than a really plausible theory, like say on the same level as earthbound abortion theory. No, really, it strays away from that plausibility, that one, earthbound abortion theory, had the plausibility. This one, it's just too short for it. I mean, that one worked because we looked into Eat Toys Past and its imagery, and, what made that creepy was how it was well presented. And not because it was written directly to creep us or mention, really, really dark stuff, but it did it because it had some strong evidence to it, and it was backed up. And, as far as if it's real or not, which we know it really isn't, after new information is presented, it was a good theory pasta. Here, on the other hand, it's as if that's all being ignored, and we get this look at Angelica, a character in the Rugrats and All Grown Up, that's just far too morbid, and honestly sucked me out of the mood entirely. If you want tales like these to have an effect, you really have to bring a lot of analytical strength to them. You can't just throw in abortions and drugs out of nowhere. And although some things have basis in this, it was far too short to really have any sense. For example, the prostitute mentioning towards the end, which just threw me off. And even though this does have a tweaked, newer version, I guess you could say, it's not really worth mentioning since it isn't too much different. All in all, I really don't know what to say. It's kind of hyped up in my opinion. It doesn't hold a candle to other theory pastas out there, such as the Vermilion City Project and even Ash's Coma. what this felt like to me was an appetizer to some larger theory that we were never told. And even then, it still kind of feels like Swiss cheese with all the holes too. For something as lengthy and big as the Rugrats, you sort of want a longer take on the matter, and while some things felt pretty good here, you needed the expansion, which this didn't have. All in all, it's a pretty short theory pasta, which fails to encapsulate me with the hype. But again, this is my opinion, and like always, I ask what would you do to make it better, and what would you rate it? Please let me know in the comments below. This has been another episode of Theory Pastas, and if you like what you saw, then like, comment, and subscribe. This is me, Mudaharan. I am out.